Every child yearns for the simple warmth of belonging. But what if the very thing that makes you unique, your beauty, your light, is what forces you out into the cold? This is the story of Leo, an albino lion cub, whose brilliant coat was a death sentence in the world that gave him life. Be sure to hit the subscribe button now to follow us through Leo's tearful journey to final realization. Sunrise over the African savanna is not always peaceful. The day Leo was born, instead of the familiar tawny and gold of the dry grass, the entire pride froze before a blinding white. Leo was a genetic miracle, a rare albino cub. But in a world engineered for camouflage and primal instinct, that beauty was a fatal flaw. Leo's difference was an unforgivable burden, a blemish in the unspoken rules of nature. His coat, instead of concealing him, turned him into an anomaly within the pride, viewed with high caution and suspicion. Though his appearance was stunning, it was seen by the pride as an unacceptable irregularity, a direct threat to the social balance of the group. Leo's presence, therefore, created an unhealable rift in the pride's social order. Leia, Leo's mother, was torn between absolute maternal love and the supreme law of survival. Her maternal instinct urged her to protect the vulnerable cub, but the ancient wisdom of the species screamed about the necessity of sacrificing one to preserve the group. Finally, under the harsh midday sun, Leia made the most painful decision. There was no malice, no cruelty, only a pure, instinctive sacrifice. She gently nudged Leo onto a remote rock outcrop, then turned and walked back toward the pride, leaving the tiny white cub alone with the coldness of isolation and an unvoiced question. Why? Survival is often a lonely business. After Ranger Jack's timely intervention, Leo was physically safe. But an abandoned heart leaves a silent wound, a wound that no amount of human care can fully heal. Ranger Jack was no ordinary veterinarian. He was a man with a big heart and deep experience regarding the miracles and harshness of nature. He found Leo just in time, exhausted and nearly collapsing under the sun. The rescue was swift, but Leo's spiritual recovery was a long and silent process. Under Jack's patient, steady care, Leo slowly regained vitality from his trembling state. Warm milk from a bottle, the steady rhythm of Jack's heartbeat when he held him, and the familiar scent of his uniform became Leo's only sources of comfort and stability. Jack was not just his savior. He was his caregiver, his only pride. However, the body can be healthy, but the soul may not. Jack understood that for Leo to thrive, he needed to resolve his internal conflict, the distress over his difference and his abandonment. Therefore, Jack designed Leo's long-term enclosure in the sanctuary adjacent to a strong steel fence, looking directly out onto the open savanna, the habitat of other animals, including his birth pride. This was the steel fence and the untold grief of Leo. Every day, Leo performed a quiet, heartbreaking ritual. He sat by the cold fence, his brilliant white form contrasting sharply with the rigid steel bars. He watched the world outside. He saw his tawny siblings safely riding on their mothers' backs, playing together and resting securely under the watchful gaze of Zahor, his mighty father. Leo pressed his beautiful, pale pink paws against the rough wire mesh, trying to grasp the scent of freedom, dry grass, and earth. He let out soft, questioning calls that went unheard. He was an observer, a caged ghost. His lion instinct was intact. He smelled, moved, and sounded like a lion. Yet, he was not allowed to be with the other lions. The difference in his reflection, coupled with the separation of the fence, created a silent, aching burden. Why am I here, and why are they out there? This is the silent battle of everyone who feels like an outsider, excluded because of their uniqueness. We often look at the life we long for from behind an invisible fence, confused by the difference that keeps us apart. For Leo, that struggle was a spiritual wound that no one, not even Jack, could heal with words. He needed a deeper truth, an answer written in the language of instinct. The answers we desperately search for often arrive not in a gentle whisper, but in the swift, brutal language of nature. For Leo, understanding didn't come from kindness. It came from witnessing death. One scorching afternoon, Leo was playing in the sanctuary yard, his white coat flashing like a brilliant signal against the dense green foliage. Ranger Jack was watching, smiling at his pure energy. But then, the pivotal moment happened. A small herd of perfectly camouflaged, tawny gazelles quietly descended to the nearby grass to graze. Leo paused his game, ears perked, head cocked in curiosity. Unbeknownst to any of them, an invisible threat, a sleek, lurking leopard, was stalking the periphery of the area. Suddenly, a new element entered the scene. A solitary, brilliant white cattle egret, the type often seen following herds, landed among the gazelles. Contrasting with the natural browns and greens, the white bird became a living spotlight, completely exposed. And then, the world exploded into action. The leopard launched its attack. The tawny gazelles, masterpieces of evolution and camouflage, scattered instantly. Their coats immediately blended into the chaotic background of grass and scrub, effectively melting away. They were safe, but the white egret had no such protection. Its color, its uniqueness, had made it the obvious, unmissable target. Before it could react, the leopard struck with terrifying precision. Leo stood frozen, his playful demeanor gone, replaced by an unnerving stillness. He had witnessed the raw, pure calculation of survival. He watched the leopard vanish back into the shadows, and then, slowly, deliberately, he lowered his gaze to his own magnificent body. He saw the pale pink skin and the fine snow-white fur on his forelegs. He was the white egret. His eyes then traveled across the distance, toward the main habitat. He saw his father, Zahor, resting deep within the shadow of a thick acacia bush. Zahor's black mane and tawny body were nearly invisible, a piece of the darkness itself. He saw his mother, Leia, and the other lionesses hunting on the horizon, their dark dappled coats offering perfect camouflage. They were the gazelles. In that heart-stopping second, the puzzle of his entire existence clicked into place. A wave of understanding, so profound and devastating it was almost human, washed over him. His family's rejection wasn't born of cruelty or a lack of love. It was born of primal, instinctual preservation. In the wild, his beautiful white coat wouldn't be a marvel. It would be a death sentence, a constant beacon for predators that would endanger not only him, but the entire pride. They hadn't rejected him. They had rejected the fatal danger he represented. When the final piece of the puzzle clicks into place, it brings not relief, but a deep, profound grief. This was the moment Leo broke down. The lion who finally understood why he was alone. The truth, once revealed, was undeniable. Leo slowly walked to the quietest corner in his enclosure. He curled into a tight ball, wrapping his long arms around his legs and burying his face in his knees. The realization of the attacked egret, of his family's invisibility, was too heavy and too cruel to bear. A sound came from him that Ranger Jack had never heard before. Not a cry for food, nor an angry roar, but a low, deep sob, guttural and pure, a lament of unadulterated grief. It was the sound of a heart breaking upon finding a terrible clarity. Jack rushed to his side, kneeling by the steel fence, calling his name in a worried voice. When Jack gently touched his back, Leo lifted his head. Jack's own heart shattered. A single, glistening tear was tracing a path down his cheek. Leo's eyes were no longer filled with the confusion of an abandoned cub. Instead, they shone with a painful yet clear wisdom. He finally knew why. He wasn't a child who wasn't good enough, not a hated individual. He was simply a biological truth that couldn't fit the most brutal law of survival. The rejection was not a lack of love. It was an act of desperation to preserve life. That acceptance was a powerful antidote, despite the pain it carried. The torment of self-doubt and the question, am I not worthy, were replaced by the profound sadness of "this is why I couldn't." From that day on, Leo was never the same. The desperate longing calls toward his family ceased, replaced by a quiet, melancholic observation. He had achieved the brutal clarity of acceptance. Leo's wisdom teaches us an important lesson about closure. In life, we often need to understand the reason behind our pain to move past it. Leo's tears were a release, marking the true beginning of his healing. The moment he accepted his reality and stopped fighting what couldn't be changed. With the why answered, Leo was finally free to focus on the how of living his life. Leo's story doesn't end in sorrow. It ends in strength. When you can't change your spot in the pride, you must build your own kingdom. His difference, once his greatest weakness, became his greatest purpose. After that fateful day, Leo was no longer the confused and longing. Under the devoted guidance of Jack and the sanctuary staff, Leo learned to transform his difference into strength. He grew into a magnificent, powerful animal, a stunning white king in a kingdom of one. His difference was no longer a source of confusion, but a profound statement of survival. Leo didn't need to join the pride to have worth. He needed to understand why he couldn't. And in that understanding, he found a profound, quiet peace. He became the King of Grace, a living ambassador for all creatures and people who feel marginalized. Leo's story quickly transcended the sanctuary walls. He became a global figure. Visitors from around the world don't just come to see a rare white lion, but to learn a deeper lesson about acceptance, the harsh logic of nature, and the astonishing emotional depth of these creatures. Leo's story teaches us a difficult, yet liberating truth. What makes us unique, what makes us stand out, is often perceived as a weakness by those who are fearful or bound by convention. But the rejection we face rarely speaks to our true worth. It speaks to the fear of the unknown that we represent. Leo realized he didn't need to join the pride to have purpose. He needed to understand why he couldn't. And in that understanding, he found a profound, silent peace. His difference became his undeniable strength, shining a spotlight on the sanctuary's mission. Leo's life is a testament to survival against the odds. But he didn't do it alone. His life is a gift preserved by the dedicated staff, medical resources, and a specialized habitat provided by this sanctuary. We believe that every life, every creature, no matter how different, no matter how much of an anomaly, deserves a second chance. Leo's story is a reminder that compassion and understanding are necessary for all, whether they live in the wild or in our daily lives. Leo's journey is not just a lesson in survival. It is an endless source of inspiration. Be sure to not miss any more stories of insight and resilience. Hit the subscribe button now and turn on notifications. Your involvement helps us spread the message of the King of Grace to millions around the world seeking acceptance. Thank you.